One of the other actions we got from the Supreme Court yesterday was actually no action at all, declining to review Donald Trump's appeal in a civil case involving writer E. Jean Carroll. In 2023, a federal jury in New York decided in favor of Carroll, who said Trump had sexually abused her in the mid-1990s in the dressing room of a New York City department store, and then later defamed her. The jury awarded Carroll $5 million in damages. And today, the Supreme Court is set to rule on President Trump's effort to limit birthright citizenship. It's a key provision of the 14th Amendment that has stood for nearly 160 years. President Trump signed an executive order on the first day of the second term directing U.S. agencies not to recognize the citizenship of children born in the United States if neither parent is an American citizen or legal permanent resident. The federal judge blocked that order weeks after it was signed. It comes after other immigration rulings by the justices last week, including allowing officials to end temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of migrants and restricting claims for asylum seekers arriving at the southern border. Joining us now, Democratic Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva of Arizona. Congresswoman, you've been covering every angle, trying to attack every angle and push back against terrible things that have been happening to people, whether it be prolonged detainment, conditions inside detention centers. And, of course, we are awaiting this outcome on birthright citizenship. Just tell us what you've seen, what you've heard from your constituents, and some of the cases that you're dealing with right now as it pertains to migrants.
Literally, 75% of the cases that are in our office have to do with immigration, whether they're DACA recipients waiting for their appointment and permission to stay in this country, even though they've been in this country for 31 years, people who are worried that they have a permanent status, but they're not, they're worried that this administration is going to come back and say, just kidding, we're going to take you home. There are senior citizens who've lived in this country for 40 years that are calling me saying, but I'm nervous. I don't want to go to the store. It is this entire environment of making people feel like they don't belong in this country. And that's what I'm fighting against. You know, we're trying to make sure that people know what their rights are and that there is a process. But this administration continues to sort of push back on this idea that we have any process at all in this country. It is not something that we've ever seen in my lifetime, and it's very scary for so many people.
So, I'm profoundly moved by what is happening here in this realm and disturbed by it in a way that keeps me up at night. For those who it's just all too much what's happening. I mean, I know a lot of people who just block out the news because it's just too much. Could you please share some of the more pressing issues that you are either demanding answers on or trying to protect people from, when as it pertains to deportations?
Well, we're trying to understand who they're looking for. I mean, we just had a case in Tucson with Carla Toledo. The rules keep changing. Yeah, exactly right. She's been in this country 31 years. We had an active DACA status, and she was told to her face that DACA is not any kind of permission, any kind of permission that keeps you in this country. And now this administration, even though their case was dismissed, her case was dismissed, now they've started again because it's a black eye when something doesn't work out to this administration's advantage, even if it's illegal. So now they're going to try to make it legal. And, you know, we have people all over this country that are worried. I had a room full of students in my office last week talking about the fact that their parents are naturalized citizens, their siblings are citizens, and they're having to leave this country because of the status that they have in this weird hodgepodge of visas. There is no clear pathway for legalization for about 500,000 people that are DACA recipients right now, and so many more.
You know, among the casualties of the twin earthquakes in Venezuela last week are believed to be as many as 140 people who were deported from the United States just hours before the earthquake struck. They were staying at a hotel that was toppled, and then you have Haitians being sent back to an extremely violent Port-au-Prince. And again, it feels like the rules keep changing. You have people showing up for asylum hearings, getting nabbed. So even though a judge might have ruled against getting people at courthouses, are they stopping? Number one. Number two, has the damage been done? Are people who are here legally or going through the legal process, by the way, paying lots of money, their life savings in some cases, to just be here, are too scared to show up to continue with being legal?
Yep. I think what we're missing is like the real human aspect. And so when I hear from people who are like, well, you know, I'm a Republican and I believe everyone should come here through a legal process, but now my son's teacher is saying that she no longer can work in this country, that she's going to have to leave to a country that she's never known. But that's not right for her. She's a good person. There are millions of people that are good people that are part of our communities and have been here for decades. And we have to, I feel it's our job to be able to show the face of the person who's being directly impacted by these inhumane policies and treatment. And then once they are detained, there was a gentleman that now is a legal permanent resident, was during his process, in the application process, and he was detained for 4 months. And he came up to me at church and said, they let me out, and now I'm a legal permanent resident. And I didn't even recognize him because the person that I saw in detention at Florence was a shell of the person that I saw there. It is causing so much stress to families and people all over this country. And there is no legal pathway. Unless you're going to buy one of Trump's $1 million passes, you're doing exactly what this administration and this country has told you what to do. And still, the rules keep changing, so there is no clear path.
Congresswoman, I'm going to assume that in the recent past couple of years, most of the constituents who visited your office in Arizona would come in for Social Security questions, Medicare questions, things like that. But now there's no more TPS, temporary protected status. That's gone. What has that done to the daily routine of your office, your home office in Arizona?
Well, I've only been in Congress for 8 months, so I'm going to go with yes for my dad when he was in office, that those are correct, that you have you still have immigration questions because I represent the southern Arizona border. All of the ports of entry with Mexico are in our district. So immigration was always a question, but it was more like passport questions, you know, how to make sure that I fill out the paperwork correctly for DACA or temporary visas. What we're seeing now is I am afraid to go out to my mailbox in a house that I have lived in for over 2 decades because I'm afraid that ICE is going to be waiting outside to take me. That's what we're dealing with right now.